A slow flame guttering in endless night, let this be the still point of your unguarded glance. There is no balm in the telling, no hope veiled in gentle lies. The world we inhabit is a theater of suffering, and this moment you are the witness of its quiet devastation. Listen, the air trembles with all the futile sighs of beings chasing shadows. You occupy a body that aches, a heart that accepts the ache as its only truth. Beneath the clamor of tasks and social currency lies an ocean of wants, and in that want you drown. Tell me, how many illusions hover behind your eyes? Purpose, progress, promise. Words that promise wings but deliver weight. There is no ascent here, only the gravity of being. Breathe, silently, and sense the tremor where your soul grasps for meaning. This grasp is the wound. The wound is the truth. The wound has no cure, only revelation. To pursue your will is to inflict upon yourself the most persistent torment. Every desire is a fire that devours its bearer. The world seduces you into believing that usefulness is your salvation, that value measured in project or profit grants release. But usefulness is bondage. The self is the puppet master of its own suffering. Pause. In the hush I hear a different rhythm, the unspoken language of reality. In the stillness behind the noise, your suffering speaks not of failure, but of presence. It is a stark confession. You are here, fully here, in the naked gravity of being. You do not need to be useful. That imperative is the final illusion. Let it dissolve. Let them leave you to your ruin, for in that surrender you discover something deeper than any accolade. Every second is an echo in an abandoned cathedral of hope. From this echo arises a melody not of solace, but of clarity. It hums of impermanence. The body shudders, the mind weaves stories, the heart attaches. This triad is the stage where your pain unfolds. Watch. When you cease feeding the illusion, the stage begins to crumble. You stand alone. And in that lonely clearing the truth arrives. You are not your suffering, but the sight that beholds it. Through this vision, suffering ceases to be wound and becomes mirror. See the parade of notions the modern world still advertises. Ascendancy, individualism, triumph. They whisper beneath bright lights and polished smiles. You feel their pull, the itch of participation. But to join is to bury your ache under counterfeit joy. The world wants you useful, wants you productive, wants you chased by deadlines so the pain is deflected, hidden behind spreadsheets and friendly chatter. Refuse. Say no with the calm of abandoned wings. The soul remembers as it always does that no affirmation can equal its silence. Every 2 breaths, feel the tension ease. Inhale the suffering. Exhale the verdict. I do not serve. You are free not because a new reward arrives, but because you abandon the old demand. When the chains of usefulness shatter, what remains is neither glory nor despair. It is presence. A lamp in the dark without aim, simply being its own flame. Look at your reflection there. Beyond appearance, this is the face of experience, not of becoming. To become is desire. To be is revelation. To be brings solitude, which the world mistakes for failure. Solitude, however, is honesty. In it you unravel the thread of who you thought you must be. The roles parent, employee, artist, activist fall away like autumn leaves. They are skins worn until exhaustion. Now they lie around you, lifeless and forgotten. I offer no promise of joy. I offer no elevation. I offer only this, the gentle urging to see. See the quiet contraction of ego, the tremor that remains when hope has abandoned its halls. This tremor is your living center. Accept it. To accept it softly is to transfigure pain into lucidity, a candle that burns by dissolving, not by resisting. This dissolution is not ended, is the clarity you walk through. Time unfolds, like an endless corridor lined with flickering lamps. Many pass by, clutching new illusions. Let them leave. If they do not linger, if they cannot bear your stillness, it is not your failing they are trapped. Your silence is too potent for them. Let them go. And in their absence, feel the spaciousness around your ache. That space is freedom. No solace glitters here, no chord of triumph sounds. There is only the resonance of acceptance, the acceptance that being is enough, unbearably enough without purpose. You stand, lamp, lit and unadorned. Let the world pass. Let the roles vanish. Let the urge to be useful falter. This is not defeat. This is the slow remission of will. Through remission you enter a different domain, not of doing, but of seeing. As the lens narrows, the outer world dims, and the inner view sharpens. There is no culminating finale, just a slow erasure. The monologue falls silent. The lantern dims. You remain, softly luminous in the cave, unclaimed by useful acts, unbound by expectations. A single candle breathing its final flicker, unburdened by tomorrow, unliterary, no longer useful, and in this, finally, serene. There is a strange quiet that follows the abandonment of striving, not the peace we are sold in moments of rest, but the cold clarity of a sky emptied of stars. This quiet is not comfort, it is the absence of momentum. And in that absence, you begin to feel the shape of what was always concealed beneath your projects, your affections, your ideals. It is the heaviness of being without distraction. The ache of simply continuing to exist. This is not punishment, but revelation. The world promises endlessly and delivers only repetition. Each desire fulfilled gives birth to new hunger. Each ambition attained opens into another horizon of want. There is no summit, only the illusion of one, so that the climb may never cease. Even the gods, fashioned in our image, suffer from the restlessness we cannot escape. Their heavens are crowded with the echoes of human longing, and still the silence beneath them yawns like a wound. Every bond you form carries within it the seed of sorrow. Affection is a quiet agreement to one day suffer. The more you care, the more you offer yourself to fate's indifferent hand. No connection escapes decay, no union evades loss. We build with trembling hands what time dismantles without pause. The death of others, the slow erasure of intimacy, the drifting of hearts, once close, these are not deviations, they are the rule. They are the structure of our world, where beauty is a brief illusion before dissolution claims it. To detach is not to reject the world, but to see it, to finally look without hope distorting the view. Suffering reveals itself not as accident, but as essence. Every pleasure you hold contains within it the pain of its own passing. Every joy is shadowed by the certainty of its end. When you understand this not merely as idea but as experience, your hands begin to loosen. You stop clinging, you stop reaching. You let what departs depart, you let what dies die. There is no salvation in society's terms. Not in recognition, not in legacy, not in legacy's legacy. All of it is sand. You could be praised for 1,000 years, what of it, when the mind that enjoys it has vanished? The applause of the world is an echo in an empty hall. You chase it until breathless, only to find that the applause was for a version of you that never existed. The world does not love you. It consumes you, politely if you're lucky. Simplicity comes not by choice, but by exhaustion. You arrive there when the will collapses under its own weight, and what remains when the will falls silent is not despair, but a strange lucidity. You see others still dancing to the music of striving, still invested in roles and returns, and you feel no contempt, only distance. Only the still ache of recognition they too are trapped. You once danced, you once believed. And now, from the edges, you watch it all with the calm of a being who has ceased to beg. Even in the silence, suffering does not cease, but it changes shape. It no longer screams. It lingers like cold air, like a hunger that no longer pleads to be fed. You learn to carry it, not as burden but as part of your very shape. It becomes indistinguishable from you. And in that fusion, you no longer ask it to leave. You walk with it. You let it speak. And it tells you, in its voiceless way, that this is Lifano, in spite of the suffering, but through it. To live without illusion is to live without script. You move not toward a goal, but from the center of being. You act, if at all, without the weight of becoming. Nothing needs to come from it. Nothing needs to prove itself. You breathe without agenda. You speak without persuasion. The world cannot use you anymore. And this, perhaps, is what they fear most. The human who no longer serves the machinery of meaning. The one who has stepped out of the dance and into the dusk. What remains when all is stripped is the flicker of consciousness itself, pure, unadorned, unnamed. You do not ask it to be beautiful. You do not ask it to matter. You simply remain with it, in the dim corridor between beginning and end. That corridor is all there is. And here, without purpose, without usefulness, without the mask of meaning, you are finally whole. Not as triumph, not as joy, but as stillness, as what neither demands nor declines. There comes a moment, quiet and unannounced, when the soul no longer resists its own gravity. The weight once feared becomes familiar, not as punishment but as condition. You cease to ask why. The question, once the centerpiece of every sleepless night, no longer holds power. Its edges have dulled, its urgency has died, not from resolution, but from overuse. The heart, worn out from chasing explanation, now sits motionless in the dusk of not knowing. And in that stillness, a strange clarity emerges, not the kind that shines, but the kind that persists, like the scent of something burning long after the fire has gone out. Even your memories betray you. They are not truth but fabrications stitched together by a will desperate to maintain a self. You recall not what was, but what suits the narrative of who you think you are. The past is a ghost rewritten daily, a fluid dream we mistake for record. There is no security in memory, no rescue in nostalgia. What once brought comfort now returns hollowed out. The faces, the moments, the love, it all glimmers with the faint sorrow of impermanence. You cannot go back, not truly, and even if you could, it would not recognize you. The self that longs for return is already someone else. You begin to see the world not as a stage, but as a graveyard of performances, each person reciting lines handed down by others, by culture, by fear. Roles dressed up in conviction, in purpose, in love. But strip away the costume and you find the same trembling creature underneath, longing for rest, for peace, for some permission to let go. No one knows what they're doing. No one ever did. Even the wise stagger. Even the serene are haunted. Every assertion of meaning hides a trembling silence underneath. You walk among the living as one already undone. The city buzzes around you, a theater of busyness, of transactions masquerading as connection. You pass them, the hopeful, the ambitious, the beautiful, the broken, each moving with the momentum of unspoken fear, fear of insignificance, of abandonment, of wasted time. You watch without judgment, you recognize the choreography. You once moved the same way. Perhaps you still do, now and then, out of habit. But something has fallen away. The drive is gone. And where there was once direction, there is now presence. Cold, unmoving, impenetrable. Detachment is not chosen. It descends. It seeps in through the cracks of disappointment, loss, repetition. It arrives slowly, like fog first, subtle, then inescapable. You do not ask for it, yet here it is, draping itself over everything. Even joy becomes muted. Even beauty becomes unbearable in its fragility. The tree that once brought awe now whispers of inevitable decay. The face you love most reminds you, wordlessly, that you will one day grieve it, or it will grieve you. There is no bond untouched by death's quiet hand. And yet, strangely, within this absence of grasping, a deeper kind of awareness begins to stir. Not pleasure, not relief, but insight. You see things as they are, stripped of your needing them to be otherwise. A cup of tea, a passing breeze, the slow motion of dusk on a wall, no longer symbols of rest, but simply what they are. No more, no less. The world, uninterpreted, reveals itself to be indifferent and beautiful in the same breath. Beauty not in design, but in transience. The kind of beauty that does not comfort, but clarifies. Love, too, changes. It no longer seeks to possess. It no longer begs for reciprocation. It becomes a silent witnessing, a devotion without demand. You begin to love not because you hope to be held in return, but because love is the most honest way of being with what will one day disappear. You love as a mourning act, as a prelude to goodbye. And in that prelude, everything is more vivid. The eyes, the voice, the small quirks, each echoing the truth that none of it lasts. That, perhaps, is why it matters at all. This state is not one of bliss. It is not peace as they sell it. It is a kind of sacred ache, a constant hum in the chest, a quiet acceptance that nothing can be secured, nothing can be made safe. You are exposed, permanently, and yet you remain. You walk through it. You wake again. You move through the day, not with hope, but with presence. You are no longer fooled. That is your only wealth. The hunger of the will remains, like a dying flame. It flares now and then, asking you to return to the dance, to want again, to try again, to build, to believe. But you have seen too much. You have come too far into the hollow center of things, and the flame, once raging, now flickers only out of habit. It has no fuel. It cannot burn much longer. And when it dies, if it ever does, there will be no celebration, only stillness, only the soft sound of nothingness resuming its rule. You were not born to serve. That was the first illusion. There is no soul to preserve, only a shell shaped by suffering, moved by blind impulse, and slowly worn away by time. To live without needing to justify your presence is the most dangerous freedom. It isolates you, it terrifies others, but it is the only truth that does not collapse under scrutiny. Everything else demands belief. This asks only surrender. Let them leave. Let them misunderstand you. Let them name your stillness, laziness, your quietude failure. They are not wrong from the point of view of the machinery. You are broken. You are no longer a productive cog. You are no longer a source of energy for the endless motion. And yet, in your uselessness, you begin to remember what it means to exist. Not for something, not towards something, but simply to exist. Like the stone, like the sky, like the final exhale of a dying wind. Time no longer marches, it drips. Not forward, but down like water through stone, slowly hollowing the core of what once seemed solid. The minutes do not carry you toward fulfillment. They dissolve you. Every passing hour peels something away, an identity, a longing, a belief. What remains is not emptiness, but exposure. The rawness of being without narrative. There is no becoming here. There is only the erosion of becoming. Pain persists, not as crisis, but as atmosphere. It surrounds everything. Even laughter echoes with its undertone. Even warmth carries the memory of cold. You stop seeking to be rid of pain, not because you have made peace with it, but because you understand it has nowhere else to go. It is not the enemy, it is the shadow of your own existence. As long as you are here, it will sit beside you. And when it grows quiet, you miss it not because it brought comfort, but because it reminded you that you were still within time, still a vessel of sensation. The faces around you blur, not because you are unfeeling, but because your gaze has shifted. You no longer see the surface. You see the trembling behind the eyes, the weight behind each gesture. Every conversation becomes a meditation on fragility. Every connection, a fleeting alignment of two fading lights. Even those who speak with certainty betray themselves in the tremor of their voice. No one knows. Not truly, we are all pretending. The performance varies in skill, but the source is the same, fear of vanishing without being known. And yet, there is no being known. No soul has ever truly touched another. We are silhouettes on the wall of solitude, brushing only shadows. We call it love, but it is proximity. We call it friendship, but it is shared distraction. When silence descends, the gap remains. You sit across from the one you care for most, and you see it the infinite space between your thoughts and theirs. You cannot cross it, you cannot merge. You can only sit with the ache of separation and offer your presence as witness. This is what it means to live with awareness, to know that everything will be taken, not as punishment, but as nature. The tree loses its leaves, the body loses its strength, the mind loses its grip. Everything you build will crumble, everything you love will vanish. Even you, one day, will be spoken of in past tense or not at all. And this truth, when felt fully, does not destroy you. It empties you. It leaves you hollow enough to hold what is real. You stop needing answers. The questions themselves dissolve. Not because they were answered, but because they were born of a mind trying to protect itself. Once the mind surrenders, the questions no longer serve. You no longer ask why you suffer. You suffer, that is enough. You no longer ask what comes next. What comes, comes. The need to know was only the will disguising itself as curiosity. But the will has quieted. Now you observe. Now you remain. There is beauty still, but it is not the beauty of comfort. It is the beauty of impermanence. The way light fades through a window at dusk. The way a child falls asleep, unaware of death. The way wind moves through trees that do not question its purpose. You witness these things not with joy, but with reverence. They do not last. That is what makes them real. That is what makes them bearable. Detachment is not numbness. It is depth without dependence. You feel everything, but you no longer require it to stay. You love, but you do not grasp. You mourn, but you do not resist. You watch the world burn its own illusions, and you do not look away. This is the difference between indifference and wisdom. The former feels nothing. The latter feels everything and lets it pass. You begin to recognize how much of your former self was shaped by fear. Every ambition, every defense, every explanation a scaffolding built to keep the truth at bay. Now the scaffolding has fallen. There is only the open air, and in that openness, you meet yourself not as you wish to be, but as you are, unspectacular, unguarded, and unbearably real. This is not enlightenment. It is not grace. It is the refusal to pretend. And in that refusal, there is a dignity more profound than any triumph. You do not rise above the world. You sink into it. You become part of its suffering. You suffer without resistance. And in that suffering, you dissolve the illusion of self. The one who sought, the one who strove, the one who hoped they fall silent. What remains is not a person, but a presence. Not an answer, but an awareness. Let the others keep chasing. Let them search for purpose, for validation, for the illusion of arrival. Let them build their temples of meaning. You have seen behind the curtain. You have heard the stillness that follows every applause. You have felt the sorrow that lives at the center of every joy. And you no longer ask for more. You sit now with the ache. You cradle it like a dying flame, not to revive it, but to honor its light. It was never meant to last. You were never meant to last. And that, finally, is why you are free. The silence grows thicker now, not from absence, but from depth. It envelops, not to suffocate, but to show you what noise was hiding. Your thoughts become fewer, like leaves falling in late autumn, not forced, not grieved, simply obeying a law deeper than reason. And in this sparse interior, something unknown begins to speak. Not in words, in weight, in stillness. In the realization that all you ever ran from was the nothing at your core. Not evil, not despair. Simply nothing. A space that asks for nothing, promises nothing, holds everything. Here, in this strange interior dusk, you find that identity itself was a fever dream. Every label, every story you wrapped around your shape, dissolves in the acid of awareness. There is no you to improve, no higher self to reach. There is only this moment, unfolding without your consent. You were never the author, you were the page, and the ink was never yours. You begin to see how suffering was always the truest part of you, not a flaw, not a phase, but the very echo of existing. Each pain was a note in the score of consciousness. You tried to mute it with meaning, tried to outrun it with dreams. But here, with the future extinguished and the past hollowed out, the pain remains not as enemy, but as the one thing that cannot lie. It tells you what is, not what should be. And in that raw truth there is something like peace, not ease, not pleasure, but peace, the way a cold wind brings clarity. Others will tell you to hope, to believe, to try again. But you have seen where that road leads. Back to the wheel, back to the hunger, back to the lie that life is a ladder to something better. You have stepped off that path, not out of cowardice, but because you finally saw that the summit was a mirage, that there is no top, only falling disguised as flight. Now you walk through the valley. Slowly, without destination. You watch the sky change and do not ask for sunshine. You watch the night fall and do not reach for light. What comes, comes. What leaves, leaves. The ego still flickers now and then. It whispers of worth, of regret, of missed glories, but you do not chase it anymore. It is a voice from another world, one you no longer inhabit. You listen without reacting. You do not argue, you do not affirm. You let it pass like wind through a hollow house. It howls, but it does not linger. It cannot. There is nothing left in you for it to grip. In this state, even time unravels. Days no longer stack themselves into meaning. Hours drift. Minutes do not push you forward, they dissolve you. The calendar is a fiction you no longer consult. You eat when you are hungry, not because it is noon. You sleep not to prepare for tomorrow, but because the body closes like a flower in the dark. You are no longer a machine of productivity. You are not a vehicle of progress. You are a creature flesh, breath, silence, and that is enough. Others may call this withdrawal, may name it depression, defeat, detachment. Let them name, let them theorize. Their need to classify is only their way of not facing it. What you have found is not sickness, but sobriety, a form of truth so bare it cannot be dressed in any diagnosis. You are not broken. You are simply done pretending. Sometimes, what once haunted you returns not to be soothed, but to remind you there is no final release. Memories are not healed, they decay. Grief does not soften. It settles like dust on the ruins of longing. Grief is no longer a storm. It is weather, and you have learned to walk in the rain. You sit by the window not waiting, not watching, just sitting. The world continues its madness outside. Sirens, laughter, transactions, seductions, and you, still, not above it. Not immune to it, but untouched, like a shadow that no longer seeks to be cast. What they chase has passed through you. You have been burned, and the ash is now your skin. This is not awakening. It is not transcendence. It is the fading of a shadow that never had substance. There is no burial, only vanishing. You walk the same roads, wear the same clothes, speak the same language, but you are no longer who they think. You are not who you thought. You are no one. And in that anonymity, there is a vast freedom. Let the world continue. Let it build and break, kiss and kill, celebrate and bury. You are not against it. You are simply no longer invested. The show goes on, but you have left your seat. You do not turn away, you look directly at it, and feel only the strange warmth of finally being honest. Nothing awaits you. Nothing is owed to you. And still, you remain, quiet, aware, unmoved, not by choice, but by truth. And the truth asks nothing, it simply is. The self is not defeated, it is forgotten. Like a dream recalled at sunrise, already fading as you reach for it. What once felt urgent now seems ornamental. What once burned now lies cool in the ashes of necessity. You see clearly now that you were never the actor, never the author. You were the unfolding, the happening, the open space in which it all appeared. To live without needing to be more, this is the final release. Not because you have learned enough, or grown enough, or healed, but because even those words mean nothing here. Growth, healing, progress, these are for the living theater of the dream. In the stillness beyond, there is only the vanishing, the falling away of layers, the slow disrobing of identity until only presence remains, bare as the sky. It is not peace, but it is close. Not as feeling, but as absence. The absence of agitation, the absence of needing the moment to be anything but what it is. You sip tea, and the warmth is enough. You hear footsteps in the next room, and they do not intrude. You lie down, not to escape the day, but because the body has spoken, and you no longer argue with it. Even death, once feared as end, reveals itself not as intruder or savior, but as the inevitable silence that was always approaching. It does not liberate, it concludes, without verdict, without meaning. You no longer resist it, not because you do not fear, but because fear has lost its function. What is there to protect, when there is no longer anything to prove? And so you walk, slowly, without urgency, past old wounds that no longer call your name, past desires that lie dried up like leaves in the gutter, past identities like discarded masks in a quiet room. You walk, not toward anything, but because motion remains. There is no destination, no insight, no serenity, only the residue of a life slowly ceasing to resist itself. Let them leave. Let the world carry on its rituals of noise and need. You do not hate it. You do not bless it. You simply do not belong to it. You sit beneath a sky that has never spoken, and you stop trying to make it speak. You become part of its silence. And here, at last, the ache softens. Not because it is healed, but because it is allowed. It rests now, like a tired animal at your feet, no longer chased, no longer denied. It breathes when you breathe. It sleeps when you sleep. You are no longer split from it. You have merged. You speak less. You seek less. You love in ways that need no words. And when you are forgotten, and you will not resist. You will be the soft air in a room where someone once wept. You will be the warmth of a coat worn by another. You will be forgotten, as you must be. There is no echo, only the silence that follows, when something that once insisted on mattering finally ceases to insist. This is not victory. This is not grace. This is what lies underneath the scaffolding of self. A vast vacancy, neither cruel nor kind. There is no discovery. There is only what remains when even the will to seek has died. Let them leave. Let them forget you. You were never here to be useful. You were here to see, to endure, to dissolve. And in that final dissolution, you become what cannot be held, what cannot be lost, what never needed to arrive. Only the candle remains, its flame reduced to a trembling ember. No smoke, no sound, only the slow vanishing of light into light.